Hey guys, I'm going to start with another stop and jot right away here. So have your social studies notebook out. And so it's going to be another true or false. I'm going to make a statement and then I want you to pause the video and write true or false depending on what you think. So the statement is during the antebellum period, some African Americans in America were free. Okay, go ahead and pause it and answer true or false. Okay, the answer to that is true. Even though the vast majority of Black people in America at that time were enslaved, some were free. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up the ways that you could potentially gain your freedom at that time. So, one way is to purchase your freedom, which, if you're not sure how that works, I'm going to give an example in a minute that explains that. Another one wasn't super common, but it did happen. Sometimes the slaveholder would choose to free some of their enslaved people, so that could happen to you. Another way that was very dangerous and very risky, but numerous people did find success at this, and that was to escape. And of course, you had to escape. You typically had to get north, and you had to get somewhere where they wouldn't be able to find you and bring you back. And then the last one would be born free, which again, you might initially think, well, how do you get born free? Well, that really only works if your parent was somebody who gained their freedom by one of those three ways, right? If they gained their freedom and then had a child later, since they were free, their kid would be born free. So those are the four main ways that could happen. And I just thought I'd share with you one example. It's about a guy named Venture Smith, just so you can kind of visualize this. So Venture Smith was born and lived for a time in West Africa, and he was actually the son of a prince. And he got captured and he got taken over to America and was enslaved. And he was in Rhode Island for a while, and then he was sold to a few different people. But he eventually ended up in, make sure I'm getting this right, it was Connecticut. He ended up in Connecticut. And in Connecticut, he did something that you guys probably are familiar with, was an option for some situations, was that some slaveholders would allow some of their enslaved people to work extra, and they would pay them to work extra more than the normal amount. And so he began to do that, and he was working really, really hard, and he had done that long enough that he eventually earned enough money to buy his freedom, right? They agreed on a price, him and the slaveholder. He met it, he paid it, and he became free. But the only problem was his wife and his two children were still on that plantation and were not free yet. So he had to continue to work hard and probably work even harder at this point to try to earn their freedom too. So he, became like a sailor for a while, went on a whaling trip. He began investing in land. He began cutting down trees and cutting lumber up for people. And he eventually was successful, and he earned enough money to then go back to his old slaveholder and pay him enough money to get his wife and his two kids. And then he already had land and had a home at that point, and so he was able to bring them to his home, and they lived as free people after that point. So this is just something that's important to be aware of, and it's going to be the focus of today's lesson. First, I'm going to touch on just the two terms at the heart of this lesson. The first one is a term you've heard me use a lot: enslaved person. Okay, another term that you probably have heard as well that was used more commonly in the past would be to say slave. The reason I'm not using that term is that that term is not really looked at as both the sort of most appropriate or accurate term, because it kind of identifies that person only by that part of their life and only that situation, when in reality all these people are human beings, right? Their fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, spouses. They have personalities. They have all these other things to them. And so to just call them a slave really only identifies them by that one thing. So when I say enslaved person, that's the idea I'm referring to. But it's just called person first language, and it's a more appropriate, accurate way to describe and speak about the whole person. Okay. So the definition I have here is that basically a person who is being forced to work for another person is the definition of that term I'm using. The other term, I'll put this as singular, that's the plural version. Freeman. A freeman would be a free African American during the antebellum period. So freeman is just a shorthand term for somebody who had their freedom. Okay, so those are the vocab terms to be aware of. And today's assignment is going to look at comparing and contrasting the lives of the enslaved people at that time and the freemen at that time, and kind of seeing where they have differences, but also some similarities that still lasted, just as a way to get a really comprehensive look at the different lives and experiences of Black people in America in the antebellum time period. So I'm going to go ahead and just give you a quick look at the assignment. The first page just has the directions and it tells you where the reading is, so make sure to look at that. And the second page is where you'll actually do the comparing and contrasting. And so this is a Venn diagram. So in this part of the circle, you're going to put the things that were unique to enslaved people's lives. In this circle on the right, on this part of it, you're going to put the things that were unique to freemen. And then in the middle, you're going to try to find some things that were similar for them. And you're going to put those in the middle. Okay. Now, I'll just like model that very briefly here. So I figured I'd just model it with 7th graders and 8th graders. Okay. At J.W. Ader. So let's say I was like reading about them, like you're going to read about these groups of people in your reading. Should be a text box. There we go. There's the text box. And on yours, you'll have to kind of like click until you get the text box to come up. So if I was reading about what 7th graders' experiences were like at Ader, here's going to be the trick, and this is the same with your assignment. I'm just going to start out writing all the important facts I see, even though some of those facts you may find out later they actually shared with 8th graders. But when that happens, you can just move it to the middle later, right? So just start by putting all the facts that you think are important that you're seeing. So I would put that their classrooms are in the south hallway. I might put that their classes, and I'm going to put math, reading, science, social studies, PE, specials. I might put that some of their teachers, I'm not going to name them all. Miss Rhodes, you got Mr. Thomas, you got Mr. Parthen. And so like maybe I've read the whole section on what 7th graders at J.W. Ader experience, and I probably can have more than that, but let's say I had that. And I start reading about 8th graders, and I'm putting different, different things down, you know, like their classrooms are in the north hallway. So that's different. And then I come across and like, oh, they take all the same classes, right? Like they're with different teachers and they're more advanced, but like they have the same subjects. I can go back and edit, cut, remove that from 7th graders, because now I realize that's a similarity. And I can put that in here in the middle. Now I'm going to maybe make this a little wider. You can adjust the text box a little bit so things fit a little bit better. And now I've got in there that's actually a similarity between them, right? And then I'll go on and I'll put, you know, their teachers, and obviously they have different teachers. I'm not going to keep going at that point. Hopefully you get the gist of what I'm showing you though. And that's going to be the same for this assignment. You're going to be reading tabs 3 through 5 in Discovery Ed. It's going to be under 9.1. And so, you know, if you're going through tab 3, that's got some more information on the experiences of enslaved people. Same for tab 4. Some of those may end up being similarities, but you don't know until you've read the whole thing. So you might as well just take every fact that seems important for enslaved people and just go ahead and put it down on the left side. And then as you get later on in the reading to reading about freemen, if you find that those are actually similarities, you can go ahead and just move them over to the middle later. Okay, I think that's the easiest way to do it. And then tab 5, you'll get the information on freemen. And if there's other information that you remember from other, stuff we've done in the unit, you can put those in as well. So you don't have to only use the reading, although you do need to use the reading too, and that needs to be a big part of it. We've had some issues with students trying to not do the readings, and that hasn't led to very good scores. So this is me making it clear again, you need to do the reading, and that's the core of what I'm looking at for your understanding. But if you do want to add some other stuff that you know about or remember, that's also fine, okay? And then when you, your goal should be a minimum of 3 separate bullet points in each spot, including the middle. But you could certainly get a lot more than that. And so I'm wanting you to get as much as you can find. And that's going to be, I'm looking to see the best that you can do. So do the best you can do and get as many as you can, but I'm expecting a minimum of 3 in each circle. Okay. That is everything that I've got. So go ahead and get started on that assignment and let me know, send me a message if you have questions. All right. Have a good one, guys.